days of synchronized swimming, 4 days of diving, 5 more days of swimming races. It's really been a non-stop schedule. Let's get this show on the road. Leading us off, Laura Granelli of Italy. 4 dives each to decide the medals. Inward 2.5 somersault tucked is our opening dive from Granelli of Italy. Well, we want to see a good standard this evening. Let's hope the mistakes have been put behind them in the preliminary round. Long wait for the marks. Consultation with the coach. 51.30. Need to be getting marks, high 7s, 8s plus, if you want to be on the podium. By Boric. The ranking reflects her position after 5 rounds earlier, rather than her position in this competition. Inward 2.5 somersault, tucked, 2.7. Same again. Inward dive first, just to give them a feel of the board again and get them safely into the water without that hurdle where so many risks are. That was a nice, clean entry.
It was at this stage of the competition in the preliminaries where she had a real nightmare of a dive, so she will be relieved to have started her final off on a very good note.
7s and a 6.5. Something to build on. Interesting character here, Natasha McManus, representing the Republic of Ireland, although she's based in Plymouth in England, which has become a centre for diving. Produced Tom Daly. With 2.5 somersault, 2.4 her opener. "17 years of age, a nice tight position there through the rotations.
Getting automatic feedback from the coach. 3 more dives to refocus on.
Steady start there. Saskia Oettinghaus, the other half of the gold 3-meter synchro team for Germany. Inward 2.5 somersault, 2.7. Some of these girls have a much higher degree of difficulty to boost their totals if they get it right. And we're hoping that good standards set by the early dives gets a bit of momentum into this competition. It's a crowd lifted, gets everybody lifted. Good start. Kaja Skurczek of Poland, 16. Forward 2.5 somersault, it's a 2.4 dive.
Could really hear the rhythm of the board as she was making her preparations. Perfect landing spot. She didn't need to compensate at all. She could concentrate on getting that position as best as she could, ready for a smooth entry.
Going along nicely here. 7s. Frida Källgren of Sweden, 16 years of age. Two junior finals before these games. The second final here as well, with 2.5 somersault.
Källgren was one of those athletes who didn't shine this morning in qualifiers, but she quietly went about her business and put herself firmly in the final.
Well, 2 6.5s and a 6. She just want to lift those scores a little bit higher than that. Diana Shelestiuk from Ukraine, 2 bronze medals already. Had a good total from the preliminary.
Starting with a difficulty of 2.7, inward 2.5 somersault. It's her easiest dive of the 4 in this final.
What about the execution then? Really gripped into that tuck position now, hands come out. Nice firm line into the water. And we're getting some 8s now. It's hotting up, 63.45. Katerina Nekrasova with the best points score carried forward for the Russian. And with 2.5 somersault tucks, that's a 2.7 dive.
So she's ranked #1 before this dive. That is because of her 5 earlier dives in the qualifiers, even though her overall score ended up being much lower.
Not that great, fairly varied. 6, 6, 5, 7, the 3 counting marks. For Germany, Luisa Stavczynski. Very experienced diver. Way back to 2011, a European Junior champion on the platform in the under-15s category. Inward 2.5 somersault, 2.7. Again, that ritual she goes through. Absolutely getting everything right. Study in concentration.
Inward 2.5 somersault to open up her final campaign.
Anybody cracks in this competition, you'd be surprised if it was the German. 2 7s and a 7.5. Strong, competitive disposition. Maria Polikova, gold medalist at 1 meter, silver at 3 meter synchro. With 2.5 somersault, the second best total from the preliminary.
Polikova is actually the only diver in this final who is making all of her dives a 3.0 degree of difficulty. So she's giving herself the best possible chance for those high scores.
And the best possible challenge, of course, as well, to deliver them. I'm not sure she has done there. It's a bit disappointing by her sky-high standards. Lydia Rosenthal, one of the two British girls who had a strong preliminary competition. The marks weren't sky high, but she could perform with her chosen dives.
Starting with a modest 2.7 and with 2.5 somersaults. All of these divers will just be pleased to get that opener out of the way, help with their nerves.
2 sevens and a 6.5, steady. We've seen the pressure tell throughout these finals. Catherine Torrance, 7th in ranking terms, so she has got ground to make up. Forward 2.5 somersault, 1 twist. As opposed to Polikova, her program has 3 2.8s. But if she can pull them off, then she will give herself every chance.
Well, she chose to open with her highest rated dive. After that, in theory, they get slightly easier. And that's when she really needs to perform in order to keep up with the Russian and her harder ranked dives.
But if she's got the confidence, she comes from knowing those dives, she could still reproduce 63, 3 solid 7s. Now we'll see the stagger unwind somewhat because the marks are added together now. Shelestyuk from the Ukraine leading, Nekrasova, Russia, Polikova, Russia, Torrance, Great Britain, Sauchinsky on the tails of them all. Then comes Rosenthal, Kallgren, Ertinghaus, Boric, Skirshek, Granelli and McManus at the moment bringing up the field. As opposed to the preliminary round when it was taking about 25 minutes to get from one to the other. We are rattling through this now with just 12 divers and just 4 dives. Forward 3.5 somersault. Now tucked 2.8. Tidy towards the end.
Granelli making that look like a lot of rotations. It was a total of 3.5 to fit in to such a short amount of time.
Lacked a bit of control, quite a bit of control for those marks. 37.80. Maya Boric. 55.35 for her first dive. So that was a start to build on. This is a reverse 2.5, 2.8.
While she's doing her best to move up through the leaderboard, the scores she carried through from this morning didn't put her in a great position, but she is chasing those higher places.
That tuck was a little bit untidy. Just needed to be a bit more compact all the way through, only getting the 5s. Natasha McManus. Came to diving because she had serious injuries as a young gymnast. Dislocated and fractured elbows, smashed up her knee. Back 2.5 somersault, it's a 2.8 dive.
McManus just enjoying this final. Until her last dive, she was 5 places away from making it into tonight. I think she's appreciating every moment she's got.
She didn't expect to necessarily make the top 12, but she's looking confident, and that's reflected in those scores, 3 sevens. Saskia Oertinghaus with a 2.9 degree of difficulty dive here, the reverse 1.5 somersault, 2.5 twists. Diving earlier this year in her hometown of Rostock, which staged one of the FINA Grand Prix events. Qualified for the final in that Grand Prix circuit meet.
That reverse 1.5 somersaults with 2.5 twists, her most difficult that she's entered into this program. So I'm sure it's always a nice feeling to get your trickier dive out of the way.
6.5s. Kaja Skrzek from Poland. Another 16-year-old. In with 2.5 somersault. Nice, tidy, compact again form in that.
She scored 7s for her earlier dive. This one rated higher, so if she gets 7s again from the judges, she'll have a higher total than before. Just a little bit lower scores from the judges, but still topping her previous, getting 54.0.
Sweden's Frida Karlgren. The World Junior Championships last year, she got 14th place. Her second final here in Baku. Back 2.5 somersault, 2.8.
She finished 12th in the 1 meter final. She'll be hoping very much to better that. 12 girls in this final.
Fairly pleased. The marks rather are decent. Just again would want to lift them up into the 7s. Diana Chelestiuk has loftier ambitions, leading at the moment. A very busy forward 2.5 somersault with 1 twist. It's a 3.0 tariff dive. She's got a good, strong program of dives.
2 bronze medals already to her name. I'm sure she would love one of a slightly different colour.
Spread there from 7.5 to 6, just pulling it back a bit. Katalina Nekrasova, just 15 years of age, representing the Russian Federation, forward 3.5 somersault.
From here, it looked like the water was going to reach her before she was ready, but one of the more experienced in the field, she would have done that forward 3.5 somersault thousands and thousands of times and knows exactly how much space she has.
How tight that tuck is, the knees wedged together. Just a little bit falling away towards the end, but 61.60, solid enough. Here we go. Super cool Louisa. Everything looks meticulously prepared. I think the expression is in the zone. Going through it all in her mind. She uses all the time at her disposal up there. Positive step forward. Reverse 1.5, 2.5 twists. Lost it a little bit there on the entry. 2.9.
It looks good until there. Great body tension. She just couldn't quite hold it as she came to finish the entry.
That's below par for her, fives. Got a real competition on here. Maria Polikova, ranked third at the moment, 18 years of age, from Penza in Russia. Going for her third medal. Back 2.5. 3.0. Attacking the rotations. Launching herself into it. Again, the entry was far from perfect.
She's really upped the difficulty levels, but she's not quite getting the scores from the judges, and doesn't matter what you times it by. If you're down in the fives, it's going to be an uphill battle.
Behind Nekrasova and Shelestiuk, which does open the way a little bit for the two British girls. Lydia Rosenthal to dive first. Both the British girls are 16. Forward 2.5 somersault, 1 twist here, 3.0.
Well, that was an example of how you need to enter the water in a vertical position with the legs. We haven't seen that for the last couple of dives.
Maybe not as tight as the judges would have wanted. Energetic, a little bit out of control when it comes to the entry. She goes for it, 3 6.5s. It's going to be open, this. Diving last, Catherine Torrance, ranked 4th from London, though she's a member of the same club as Lydia Rosenthal up in Yorkshire. Forward 3.5 somersault tucked. This is a 2.8. Our execution needs to be good.
Three and a half somersaults in the tuck position. Not getting much of an expression from the coaches.
I think that's because we're diving in this area towards the higher end, when it really is down to what the judges think rather than perhaps some of the more obvious errors. Maybe the tuck could have been a little bit more pulled together, but 61.60 keeps her in the hunt. It's going to be an interesting leaderboard. At the halfway stage, 2 of 4 dives. Shelestiuk is still ahead there, but by less than 2 points, chased by Catherine Torrance. And then there's a bit of a gap to Lydia Rosenthal, the top 3 pulling away a little bit. Polikova dropping down behind Rosenthal, but in contention with her. Stoczynski not looking on course for another medal for her collection. It can all change. Well, we've seen a 0 over the last few days, so chuck in one of those and it blows up the whole leaderboard. Round 3. Laura Granelli for Italy. Well, that's a really disappointing dive.
I think she's done that again. In her preliminaries, she really struggled on this dive. She only got 3.5. Scored a total of 30, and I think she might even be lower than that after making such a major mistake on completion of the dive.
Well, if a disappointing performance in the preliminary with it can just turn it into an issue in the mind and just hold out of it, and that's a shame. Maja Boric from Croatia, back 2.5 somersault. .8 tariff here.
Such a difficult position to get into that tight tuck. You need to have your hips flexed, your knees flexed, but your toes pointed, and hers really aren't in that position.
Well, her final appearances have been in synchronized competitions. She's got the stage to herself here, and the pressure, of course, and 42 points with that dive. Natasha McManus left home 3 years ago to shift to Plymouth and work on her diving. Back 1.5 somersault, 2.5 twists, 2.8. Through those twists and trying to get into a good entry position, but stopping that momentum was a challenge.
Well, it looks like she's having fun, not taking it too seriously, but still giving her 100% best.
Saskia Oettinghaus down in 7th position. This reverse 2.5 somersault tucked, 2.8.
She rescued that one pretty well. If we watch the replay and get to see her feet on the board. Why not? We're just getting the headshot, but her toes were just over the edge. It makes it very difficult to get the full power off the board. You're losing the grip.
Brought home Germany's first gold in the pool. On now to Kaja Skalšek, 9th, back 2.5 somersault, 2.8. Never really got a good upright position to make a clean entry.
She had wonderfully pointed toes, really close in the tuck, but the entry is a big part of it as well.
Really have to work the stomach muscles, the core strength to get into the position and hold it there. Younger divers really haven't had a huge amount of time to work on that aspect of their conditioning. Frida Kalgren is 8th. Moved to Germany for 4 years to work on her diving, now back in Malmo.
She didn't manage to get the height. There is a sweet spot on the board. She was just a tiny bit behind it. And then you've got to use your energy to move forwards to get away from the board. And you don't get the same amount of spring. And she was just moving too far out, not enough up. Ran out of space.
One more dive left to try and finish the games strongly. In the lead after the first 2 rounds of this final, Diana Chalustich of the Ukraine. Back 2.5 somersault pint, 3.0. Nice elevation, not quite so nice landing. Out of the pike, just continuing and slapping the water with her feet.
It's this stage of the competition where it starts to really heat up. The level of difficulty on the dives ramps up, and as a result, the judges' scores don't necessarily follow.
It's a blow to her. Ekaterina Nekrasova, who was second, could well cash in. A point she will no doubt have noticed. Back 2.5 somersault pint, again 3.0.
Well, she gave that one some. She's got the advantage of the score that the points will be multiplied by, the 3.0. .57, that's 17 points higher than the same dive she did in the qualifiers. She's really pulling it out now. It's getting important.
Overall, this is a nervy-looking round. Nobody has really produced an emphatic score yet. Luisa Stochinski from Germany. Can she focus all that concentration and composure into producing a dive that will lift her up and into medal contention? Big ask, needs a big score. She worked her way through that dive, didn't look quite as smooth on the hurdle, but she got up there and got down there okay. Looks like the best dive of the round so far.
Well, we saw her do it when it mattered in the synchro event. And look at that, she's pulling back now, 63.0.
Giving herself a chance, depends how they respond. Maria Polikova has slipped back, reverse 2.5 somersault. And she slipped back again.
Interestingly, this was the dive that she really struggled on in the qualifiers. She only got 4s, 4.5s from the judges, and she hasn't really made much of an improvement on that performance, if any.
Again, it's been a long day, and we're starting to see a combination of pressure and fatigue, maybe. Don't think Maria's laughing too much. So, can the British girls respond? Lydia Rosenthal, then her third dive. She's been steady away, 55 and a 58. Reverse 2.5 somersault, 2.8 only. Again, the entry could have been a little bit more impressive.
It all looked a little bit untidy. And there's almost a shake of the head from the coach, very subtle. But she knows that Rosenthal can deliver something tidier than that.
British girls starting full of hope after these 4 dives went far better for them in the preliminary, but now we're down at the sharp end. A 43.40 reflects the different pressures. big, deep breath from Catherine Torrance. Third currently, reverse 2.5 somersault, 2.8. What can she do with it? Right on the edge of that board.
That looked smooth. It looked compact.
Strong off the board, putting the legs together for the entry there.
That's another 61.6, exactly the score she had for the last dive. She is being consistent in the right place.
3 solid dives there. Another interesting changing leaderboard. Nekrasova ahead, so tight behind Catherine Torrance. Shelestiuk has got a 16-point gap, but it's neck and neck with Stalczynski for that bronze medal position. Ertinghaus has pulled up, she's not far behind. Rosenthal has fallen back. There is 1 round left to decide the medals in the women's 3-meter springboard. It's been a short, sharp shock to the diving system, this final. Just 4 dives, no room for error, no time to settle. Laura Granelli, her last dive of the games.
She will be happy to finish on a note like that. She only scored 25 on that dive when she finished earlier. She looked like threatening her chances to even make it into the final, but she's rectified that now.
The long term, even though this is a big new event, it's very much part of a learning process. 3 6.5s, pretty decent in the circumstances. My Boric has not really got going. 2 fairly middling dives before this forward 2.5 somersault pint, just 2.4. Performs it decently enough.
This her final dive of the competition. She's competed in the 1 meter and the 3 meter synchro. That is her final performance of the European Games. She'll be pleased to finish on a consistent note.
15th at 1 meter, 8th in the synchro, and she finishes with a smile. Natasha McManus carrying the Irish flag into the diving finals with 2.5 somersault, 2.7. She's down in 10th place.
Well, for McManus, it really has been a treat for her to make the final. She finished 19th in the 1 meter and was looking like being out of contention of this final with just 1 dive to go. And everybody else didn't keep their calm, and she did. And she got the chance to compete again this evening.
Made a big commitment to her diving. 2 6s and a 6.5, and a pretty smiley sort of competitor. Saskia Ertinghaus has got stronger as this final has gone on. Bit of a short trip, maybe if she had an extra dive as they normally would get at senior level, she might just have made more progress. Needs to get this back 2.5 somersault tucked steadily away and see what happens.
Well, she has been coming back strong after her preliminaries, the 5 compulsory dives, she was ranked down in 13th, so she came into the final with a bit of a disadvantage from those scores.
Well, her scores 59, 56, 56, 56. So she can keep it together, and she has got a synchro medal of the right colour. Kaya Skirshek winds up the reverse 2.5 somersault tucked. It's a 2.8 dive. She's down in 8th place, the 16-year-old. Got a couple of years left at the junior level, and she can draw on this experience and try to push on. Three finals under her belt, tightly tucked there, reaching for the water. Not a bad finish for her. Really appreciate the height they get off the board with that angle of replay.
Happy coach, happy athlete. That's what we like to see. Even more important at junior level.
3 sevens, well done. Frida Källgren of Sweden. Back 1.5 somersault, 2.5 twists.
And a big improvement on her previous dive. The same rating, again a 2.8 degree of difficulty, but she looks much more comfortable in this one.
She's regularly making finals at European junior level, and she's maintained that with 2 finals here in Baku, and a good enough dive to see her smiling and waving at the end. Now we're getting down to it. Diana Shelestiuk in the bronze medal position, forward 3.5 somersault. It's a 3.1 dive if she could have pulled it off.
Gosh, she really has started to falter at the latter ends. Was in the lead after her first and second dive. It all went a bit wrong on the last one. And this equivalent dive in the preliminaries was also down in the 38s. So can she do any better than that this time?
Just running out of steam. Great Pike's position, but much else going right, and all 35, 65. Oh, no wonder she looks pretty solemn. She's blown that. So we're still looking for someone to grab a place on the podium. Ekaterina Nekrasova is in the gold medal position, forward 2.5 somersault, 1 twist to be the champion, and that is a good execution, and she has kept her nerve and now has to wait for first the judges and then her rivals.
Well, she saved her difficult dives until the end, and it looks as though she saved her strong performances until the end as well.
Just 15 years of age. She just missed out on a medal at 1 metre by 1.65. Not a blinding finish, but not a disaster either. What do the judges say? 54 points. Keeps it interesting. She leads at the moment. Well, Louisa Stauczynski, can she get back on the road? Really good last dive, a dodgy second one Back 2.5 somersault tucked is a 2.8 tariff. She's just off the podium and trying to grab her third medal of the Games. Last chance for the German. Total concentration. Total silence in the pool. I will not be hurried. Tension. Well,
I think she deserves to wait if she can bring out a performance like that when it matters. She really has been one of those that's consistently, slowly improves throughout the competition.
but
She got 57 for that same dive in the preliminaries.
well, the judge is not impressed with that. 44.80.
Oh, she's going to be frustrated with that when she knows she could have scored over 10 points better on that dive.
Well, missed chances again. The third dive, a disaster for Polikova. Way down the rankings. Forward 2.5 somersault, 1 twist, 3.0. That's far more like the Polikova we've become accustomed to.
A strong Russian contingent. Some of them have finished their competitions now, and they've all come along to support. But I think it might be a little too little, too late.
Good finish, would have been good enough, but for the earlier mistake. 64.50. All down to the British girls left to dive. Lydia Rosenthal down in 6th place. Looks too much, perhaps, to make up the deficit. Back 2.5 somersault, 2.8. Certainly keeping the tension going all the way in this final. Last dive. Not one of her better ones, not what she needed.
She's just let it slip at the end here. She had a really strong finish to her qualifiers, and it has been such a long day trying to replicate that again in the evening. It's tough.
A disappointing end for Lydia, 4.5s. The last dive of the women's diving programme. Catherine Torrance has been really solid with 360+ dives. The medals there for the taking. Second place, a silver well within her reach is the gold. She's got to pull out another strong dive. Back 2.5 somersault, 2.8. Down to this. Well, solid again, under pressure. Will it be good enough? And what's the colour of her reward?
Well, she can relax and know that she's got a medal with that performance. It was tidy. It could have been a little bit tighter.
She's kept her form going. She's done her bit. She's waiting now to see who the judges decide is going to take the gold medal. Catherine Torrance dives last. And she's done it. It's a gold for Great Britain. It's gold for Catherine Torrance. What a conclusion to the women's diving competition here in Baku. What a cracking performance. And she is overwhelmed by it.
That is such a strong, consistent, level-headed performance. She came into it 7th position from the score she carried through, and in only 4 dives, she managed to move up to take the gold.
Great commendation there from the German coach. You did very good. I'll say she did. Nekrasova edged out into the silver medal position. this was the moment that did it. She kept cool and really delivered when it mattered. Nice and solid. And delight again in the British camp. They've got another gold.
Straight to the press area. And that will hopefully, for her, be going straight back to Great Britain.
Gold for Catherine Torrance of Great Britain. Silver robbed at the finish for Ekaterina Nekrasova. And up comes Saskia Oettinghaus to get a bronze medal, her second of the games. Stoczynski edged out a thrilling contest that went all the way to the final dive.